Hi, y'all. Let's talk about annotated bibliographies. That's what we're working on this week. But before we do get started with that, I wanted to mention a couple of things. Recently, some of the quizzes have been, some of the answers in the quizzes have been marked as incorrect, even though they were technically correct. Like maybe there was a word misspelled, or there was punctuation wrong, or what have you. I go through and look at all of the answers whenever there are questions that have to be graded. And so I tried to catch those that had been marked incorrectly. I don't know that I caught them all, and thank you to those of you who emailed me and let me know that there was an issue with yours. Please do go through, and if you see that there's a question with any of the quizzes, if you feel like there's one that's marked incorrectly, please tell me, and I can go in there and I can fix it. I try to catch those things before, they before too awfully long. But just in case, because I am looking at so many, it's possible that I miss some. So please, please, please tell me if your quiz has got some answers that are, that you don't understand how they were marked wrong, or you're not sure, or you just want me to look at it. Email me and I will do it as soon as I possibly can. Let's see. Oh, and also the due date for the rhetorical analysis was incorrect on our week 3. It was listed as the end of that week, and I have changed that because in the calendar it was correct. It was listed as being this week, and so it is now due on February 16th. So I apologize for that. But if you go and look at the calendar, it's listed as February 16th. And I think what happened there was I had entered some of the dates on the calendar, and then in the process of entering the dates and setting things up on the website, changes were made and things just didn't all make it quite through the process. So I apologize for that. And if you are, if there's an issue with the due date for you, as always, let me know and we can talk about it. Okay, so I believe that's all the housekeeping we need to do for today. Let's run through your to-do list. The first thing is to do what you're doing right this very second. Watch the video for today. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over that annotated bibliography assignment sheet. You'll need to read the PDF related to gathering sources and documenting them. That PDF is located below. There's a student example and some lecture notes that we're going to go through together in this video. A discussion board for you to complete, and then there's a quiz over the weekly reading and what we talk about here. And that should just about do it for what you need to do this week. So let's jump in and look at the assignment sheet. I have set this to be due on the 23rd. And I have asked that you please look at this annotated bibliography assignment sheet carefully. As you can see, there are 2 files associated with this. One of them is the rubric, and one of them is the assignment sheet. This is where you'll submit the assignment when you're done with it. But let's look first at the assignment sheet. All right, so what you're going to need to look for are a whole series of documents that are pertinent to what you are learning about your topic, that are pertinent to the issue at hand that you wanted to study for the semester. You will need to find at least 5. And you will need to create this says reference list, and that's incorrect. You'll need to create a works cited page. in MLA style. And then beneath each citation, you'll have 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph will summarize the article's main ideas, and the second paragraph will be the paragraph that, generally speaking, presents the biggest issue, because everybody knows how to summarize an article. Everybody knows how to summarize a piece of scholarly writing. We take time to teach people in the lower grades, below high school even, how to summarize something, but we don't frequently teach evaluation, and so I will talk about that some in this video. But the second paragraph is the evaluation of the source. So you'll need 5 texts, and they'll need to be from the school library. They'll need to be from scholarly sources. And by scholarly sources, we mean anything that is from a journal, a scholarly journal, anything that comes from a book within the library. It cannot be something just randomly found on the internet. It needs to be something from a scholarly journal, from the library, the school library, or from a book. And that book can be from the school library, or it can be from, your own textbook somewhere, or, just so long as it's actually a book. You'll need to organize your entries alphabetically. And here's what should go into each of the paragraphs. The summary should include an opening sentence where you talk about who the author is, where they're from, what type of source this is. Generally, think about this opening sentence as kind of an introduction. There's less need necessarily for the author's name in this sentence, because that's in the citation. So it's not necessary for you to always include the name of the author here. If the author is someone who is particularly famous, maybe, or if this is an author that is well known within the discipline that this resource has been created, then maybe you include the name there. But generally speaking, we don't have to have that there. But if there's not a whole lot more that you can place in that first sentence, then sure, use the name of the author. But you want to talk about what the source is. Is it an encyclopedia entry? Is it a book chapter? Is it a journal article? Then you want to include the thesis, argument, or purpose purpose of the source. You want to include a summary of their logical progression within the argument. How do they get from A to B to C within the argument of the resource? The best examples or evidence provided for the argument, and then the conclusion that the author reaches. And usually you'll see that that's a suggestion of some sort. And the length should be somewhere in the area of 7 to 10 sentences. Your evaluation should include your critique of the article, meaning what kind of source is it? If you say that in the earlier paragraph, you don't have to put that here. Is this author credible? Is this author credible because they have done the preeminent seminal work in the area of this study, or is this author credible because it is a primary source and they are writing about their own experience witnessing something, or that kind of thing? What's the structure within the source? Is it a book that has chapters in it? Is it a textbook? Is it a novel? What is it? How is it structured? Is it a journal article that has the standard subheadings within it? If so, you might want to talk about, less about this and more about how the author has organized their information. If you see holes in any of the above categories, talk about them. Now, aside from saying, yeah, this is a good article or this is a bad article, you need to say how you're going to use this article. And I will show you what that looks like. This is an annotated bibliography of one source, and it is a book called Bird by Bird. It's written by Anne Lamott. She's a professional writer. She writes for a living, and she writes about writing. She also writes about motherhood and other things, but she's mostly known for her experience as a writer and then writing about being a writer. Sort of Inception-like. But anyway, here's our first paragraph after the citation, and you can see this citation is in MLA format. I will be looking closely at that. This is your opportunity because this piece is so, this assignment is so, oh gosh, what's the word? It is so specifically related to the academic use of MLA. This is just a really great opportunity for you to show me that you actually know how to use MLA formatting. So please get it right. Don't lose points for something stupid like not using a hanging indent. This right here is how your annotated bibliography needs to look. And as far as the title goes, you can do it like this, where it says annotated bibliography and then a title that's associated in some way with your topic. Like, let's say that I'm writing a paper about the types of resources that are helpful to writing teachers. I might call it Sources from a Writing Teacher's Desk. You can flip-flop this and have the title of your, ostensibly title of your essay come first and then colon annotated bibliography. Order doesn't matter. What matters is that it's not just annotated bibliography. You also need to have something associated with your topic. Some annotated bibliographies include, for instance, a paragraph that's like a description of the project. For our purposes, we're not doing that because while you might be doing research, you may not have determined exactly what argument you want to make. You might think you know what argument you want to make, but you may change your mind. We haven't reached the place where you need to hammer that out in final form. So no need for a thesis statement paragraph, but do be aware that in some assignments you'll need to provide that. So we've got the title, we've got the standard MLA setup up here, we've got the citation, and then we've got our summary text right here. Short paragraph. Remember that with a summary, you want to provide your reader with the information that they have to have in order to understand exactly what the text is about from a general standpoint and be able to make the decision as to how helpful that text would be for them for their purposes. So if you look at this paragraph, there is so much that it does in such a short amount of text. For instance, just look at that first sentence. Lamott's book offers honest advice on the nature of a writing life, complete with its insecurities and failures. From this sentence, we get so many things. We get a description of what this resource is. It's a book. It's a book with advice in it. We get the topic of the book. It's about the writing life. And we also learn that it's not just about how great it is to be a writer, but also about things that may go wrong. So if you think about it, this sentence has got an enormous amount of information in it. And throughout the rest of this annotation, you'll see that every single sentence does an enormous amount of heavy lifting and does a great job of telling the reader this is what you need to know about this piece. So The next sentence, taking a humorous approach to the realities of being a writer, the chapters in Lamont's book are wry and anecdotal and offer advice on everything from plot development to jealousy, from perfectionism to struggling with one's own internal critic. So now we've got a little bit of summary of what some of these chapters are made up of. We get an idea of the genre. We get an idea of the tone. We get an awful lot of information about what exactly is in this book. We also find out in this final sentence that there are writing exercises in the book, which not all books about writing include writing exercises. So this is important for my readers to understand that this book does indeed have some exercises in it that would be helpful to use in the classroom. Now we get into the evaluative portion. You will notice that in this paragraph, what the person who wrote this is doing is talking about how it can be used. If you look down here, chapters in this text could easily be included in the curriculum for a writing class. That is a description of how it can be used. Several of the chapters in Part 1 address the writing process and would serve to generate discussion on students' own processes. Again, a way this can be used. Some of the writing exercises would also be appropriate for generating classroom writing exercises. So here we have 3 different sentences within this paragraph that talk about how the resource can be used. So when I say evaluate, I don't just mean, is this a good or a bad resource? Is this a helpful or unhelpful resource? No, that is not the only thing you're doing here. You are also talking about how this resource can be used by other people and how you might use it, with a focus on how you're imagining using it in your essay. So for instance, if you find a resource that gives a huge amount of information about the history of the problem that you are researching, or gives some background information on some of the parties involved, then you would want to say, I can imagine using this in this way. You would want to say, readers of this text will see that there are references to the history of the problem. So you want to talk about how you're going to make use of this text, as opposed to just, this is a great text. So this is a very good example of an annotated bibliography. This came from the Purdue OWL website. I did not write this, but it is a super duper example. So this is your assignment sheet. You need to have 5 texts from the school library, and they need to be scholarly sources. Okay, here's the rubric. This is the rubric, and you can ignore it says 3 points, 2 points, 1 point. I've assigned points within the actual rubric that add up to 100. So you may ignore the point value up here. What I want you to see is how I'm going to be, what I'm going to be looking at. How's the summary? How's the formatting? How's the organization? That sort of thing. So the rubric itself is intended to kind of help you understand what's what with regards to how I'm going to be grading. Let's see, week 4, so we'll go back. All right, so now you'll need to read this text on your own. Let's look at the example. No, let's start with the lecture notes. We'll start with the lecture notes. Sorry about that. Whoops. Sorry about that. All right, so this is from the textbook called How to Write Anything, and it is all about annotated bibliographies. We create annotated bibliographies for a number of reasons. They are present in larger projects, kind of as a portion of a larger piece. They can be helpful tools to help you research and organize what you've found. And they can also be published as standalone documents that are intended to help other researchers. Now, you're not going to walk into, say, oh gosh, that's a dated reference, Books A Million. You're not going to walk into a bookstore and find an annotated bibliography on a bookshelf, probably. But you will find them frequently in the scholarly journals that are published by the various, colleges and whatnot. So, an annotated bibliography is an alphabetical list of sources and documents that you have used in developing a research project, with each item in the list summarized and evaluated. This can be the final project. This can be the final part, the final piece of a larger project. It can be a tool that you create for your own use, so that you have, like, let's say you are creating a very large project that has many, many resources, hundreds and hundreds of resources. This is a good way to know what you've read and what you haven't read, what you've found, and what has made the cut and what hasn't. In other words, it can be a great organizational tool for you. So where do you start? What I would do is, research, find some resources that I think are going to be helpful. And when I have found the number of resources that I need, maybe add 3 or 4 more, just to be safe. That way you can determine, okay, is this source better than this source? Okay, I'm going to cut this one and keep this one. It's always better to do a little more than not enough. So after you have found all the sources that you think are the very best for the purposes of your essay, your argumentative work at the end of the semester, then create a works cited page. I feel like it's easier to go in there and have the works cited page set up and then insert the summary and evaluation paragraphs after the works cited is created. But you set it up, do it in whatever order you would like. Make sure that you know how to summarize, paraphrase, and be concise. Quotes are never okay in an annotated bibliography for the purposes of this assignment. They are rarely okay in an annotated bibliography, generally speaking. Do not include quotes in the annotated bibliography for this assignment. That will cost you points. And the reason that I say that is that I want to see that you know how to do those 3 things: summarize, paraphrase, and be concise. And if you are cluttering up your own language and your own thoughts with quotations from the resource, that tells me that you don't have a really good grasp on this. You don't have a whole lot of room in which to convey what you need to convey. So it needs to be all you and not somebody else. So you need to know how to summarize, as I said. Now, obviously, you guys have been taught how to summarize from way back in the day when you first started school, I'm sure. They have got to be short and to the point. They need to talk about what has to be known in order to fully understand from a general standpoint, what's in the text. You need to, when you evaluate, you need to talk about what the significance is, what the quality of the work is, but it needs to also explain the role the work plays in your research. The piece that you are talking about, the book chapter or the journal article, might have no purpose other than to maybe expose you to some new search terms. And if that's the case, then say that. The piece might be a super important core piece, which every other scholar who writes about your topic is going to make use of. Then you need to say that. So that's what the evaluative portion is supposed to help your reader understand. So make sure that you keep up with the information about your sources accurately and carefully. You want to make sure that you go back and read the assignment sheet multiple times. Take notes on your resources. Remember, I shared the website Zotero with you, and I think that's a great resource. I wish it had been around when I was having to create these things myself, because we had to do them quote unquote by hand, and boy was that a pain. But you got to be careful as you go and take detailed notes. How do you title this thing? You can't just call it an annotated bibliography. You got to put something else up there. Like I said earlier, you need to include some kind of a phrase, a question, a word, whatever, that gives your reader some kind of a concept of what the topic is, so that they have an idea of what you're dealing with. Because you might have a whole bunch of texts about social media, but I can't tell just from looking at what you've written that you're going to be focused on the youth. So you want to make sure that that gets into the title and gets across to your reader in some way. This is how it needs to look. It should not look like this with the writing all over it, but this is how your AB should look. This right here, this photograph, this picture, this sketch, this right here is what it needs to look like. And I'm making a big deal out of this because frequently students will just kind of throw something on the page and just go with it. And there is a very specific way that MLA formatting is supposed to look. And it's like this. So if yours does not look like this, it's going to lose points. All right, so those are